Hello and welcome again to Walking Through Second Corinthians. This is episode number 12. My name is Whit Sasser. I am a preacher with the Appleton Church of Christ in Appleton, Wisconsin. Also one of the pastors of the congregation as well. And we're near the end, not quite. Won't be today, I don't believe, ended, but we're near the end of our walk through this epistle, this letter, this book of the New Testament called Second Corinthians. We're in chapter 11, beginning in verse 16 is where we pick up where we pick up after leaving off last time. Second Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 16. While you're finding that, or while I get us ready, meaning not just abruptly to dive in, let me just say that he has resorted, the Apostle Paul, has resorted to what might be in his own mind, in fact, regarded as foolishness. He doesn't want it to be regarded as foolishness, but it's somewhat foolishness to brag about accomplishments or things done by him, but it would appear to be that that's the only way that he's going to get much regard from the Corinthians, at least now. So he resorts to that, and that's really where he picks up in verse 16. And so I think I'll let that suffice as a bit of a walk-in to this walking through Second Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 16. Okay? I say again, let no one think me a fool. If otherwise, at least receive me as a fool, that I also may boast a little. What I speak not according to the Lord, but as it were foolishly in this confidence of boasting. Seeing that many boast according to the flesh, I also will boast. For you put up with fools gladly, since you yourselves are wise. I wonder if that's a sarcastic expression. For you put up with it if one brings you into bondage, if one devours you, if one takes from you, if one exalts himself, if one strikes you on the face. To our shame, I say that we were too weak for that. But in whatever anyone is bold, I speak foolishly. I'm bold also. Let me stop right there. That's verse 21. We'll pick back up with 22 in a minute. I stopped myself briefly to say it sounds like he's being sarcastic, and after finishing what I read there, I still feel that way, that he's sounding a bit sarcastic about it. But be that as it may, whether it is or isn't, you can really tell or sense that he doesn't like this. I started to say hates it. He may hate it, but he definitely dislikes doing this. But it seems to be that's the only thing they'll relate to, or the only thing they'll respect, or such like. And he sure doesn't want to make it sound like, well, the Lord really is pleased with this, because he's not. He says, let me see if I can find it again. Verse 17. I speak not according to the Lord, and so I don't think he thinks God is well pleased with this. I don't think he's sinning, of course. Otherwise, that would be wrong. But he definitely is stooping to a level that he'd prefer not to have any regard for what he's saying or doing, and such like. But it seems to be, and this is what I thought was somewhat sarcastic. You put up with all of this nonsense, so put up with me a little bit. Not that just put up with foolishness, but that seems to be the only way you're wise, is to put up with this kind of thing. I'm using my own words, of course. All right, I don't think I'll say more on that. Just carry on. Verse 22. And this is the so-called brag or boast of himself that he doesn't prefer to do. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more. In labors, more abundant. In stripes, above measure. In prisons, more frequently. In deaths, often. From the Jews, 5 times I received 40 stripes, minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I've been in the deep. In journeys often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren, in weariness and toil, in sleeplessness often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness. Besides the other things, what comes upon me daily, my deep concern for all the churches. Who is weak, and I'm not weak? Who's made to stumble, and I do not burn with indignation? If I must boast, I will boast in the things which concern my infirmity. The God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who's blessed forever, knows that I'm not lying. In Damascus, the governor under Aretas, the king, was guarding the city of the Damascenes with a garrison, desiring to arrest me, but I was let down in a basket through a window in the wall and escaped from his hand. Now, that's the end of the chapter, and so I'll pause. Plus, I've read quite a few verses anyway. But I'm just saying, where we pick up again in a few moments, it'll be carrying right on. So he's basically, not basically, he is saying that and this is me putting it in my words, I run circles around anybody that you think is any big stuff there among you, or has been among you, Corinthians, that you give such great elevated thought to and place such stock in and so forth. And I hate to be bragging about myself or accomplishments or things that I've gone through and so forth. But he does. He mentions a whole lot of things. And then he adds this one at the end, and I don't think it's, well, let me just say what it is, regardless of what I think it is or isn't. He indicates, and the thing daily that bothers me is care for all the churches. And maybe that's a way of saying, and I care so much for you, you Corinthian church. And that's what bothers me the most, is my concern about what's going on there and the congregation that I helped plant and care so much for and so forth. And that's a real, I won't call it a stress, but a real occupation of his mind greatly. And not just them, but other churches too. He's not only worked with the Corinthians. And so, anyway, that's some of it. And I won't repeat again, but he listed off just when it comes to this or that or the other, that some people might say, wow, he went through that. I more than them. Whatever they have gone through, and some of these people may have gone through some perils. I run circles around them in all of those things. Does that mean a lot to you? It would seem that Paul thinks maybe it does. I'll share it with you. And he's not through, by the way. He's coming up on in chapter 12, more talk along this line. In fact, I think I'll just let that suffice my comments and go on to chapter 12. It's doubtless not profitable for me to boast. This is chapter 12, verse 1. I'll come to visions and revelations of the Lord. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago, whether in the body I do not know, or whether out of the body I do not know, God knows, such a one was caught up to the third heaven. And I know such a man, whether in the body or out of the body I do not know, God knows, how he was caught up into paradise and heard inexpressible words which is not lawful for a man to utter. Of such a one I'll boast, yet of myself I will not boast, except in my infirmities. For though I might desire to boast, I'll not be a fool, for I will speak the truth. But I refrain lest anyone should think of me above what he sees me to be, or hears from me. And he's got more to say, but let me just stop there. Commentators, I'm a very, I don't know if I even call myself a commentator, but I'm giving comments, so have disagreed or wondered or thought, who's this person he anonymously speaks of? I know a person 14 years ago was caught up to where God's presence is in heaven, in paradise and so forth, heard things that are not lawful for men to talk about or utter. And is he talking about himself in the third person or anonymously, meaning I know a man and it's him? Some might think so. Is it John? Well, we do know John in the book of Revelation was caught up into heaven and saw some things that he wrote, and he was supposed to write things that he saw, wrote things he heard too, except on one occasion I recall in the book of Revelation he was forbidden, don't write that. But otherwise he wrote things he saw and heard. It's basically what we call the book of Revelation in the Bible. It's the last book of the Bible. And so is it John? Is it somebody else? A third person? Not him, not John, is somebody else. We don't know. And I'll leave it there. I'm not going to try to suffice or answer or explain what my leaning is on that. But just say that that's the case. Anyway, this would be something worthy of bragging about. He doesn't want to brag about it, but he's just throwing it out there, if you will. Whoa, this would be something tremendous to know or to have experienced. And some think that because, and here I go with some of my leaning, because of what he's trying to do to impress upon them, that he's speaking in a way of himself as an impression, to make an impression, if you will. But either way, whether it's him or some other. And anyway, this third heaven. Let me just mention that a moment before moving on. And in fact, let me check my time. Yeah, we may have a little bit more here, but let me see what time we have left after my comment on the third heaven. Some may have wondered what it is. Well, he calls it paradise in a verse or two later. He calls it third heaven in verse 2. He calls it paradise in verse 4. So whatever the one is seems to be the other. And the first heaven would appear to be the heavens that are lower to the earth where the birds fly. I've heard it's referred to. And the other heavens, if you will, or the second heaven, would be outer space, And then the third heaven would be where God is. Wherever the third heaven is, and it's called paradise, he does hear things that can't be uttered by man. I don't know if that's because the language is not known. I don't think so. Or is it just unlawful to be saying? That may be more so the case. But whatever the case is, it's not a place as much as it's a place. It is a place, but it's a third heaven place where there's words being uttered. And that's what I'm trying to say. Okay? So let me check the clock again. Yeah, okay. We got at least enough to start. I don't know if we'll finish it, but let's start it. Verse 7. And lest I should be exalted above measure by the abundance of the revelations, a thorn in the flesh was given to me, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure. Concerning this thing I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. And he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore most gladly I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, and reproaches, and needs, and persecutions, and distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Just as I wrap up for today, and I may comment a little more on this when we pick up next time. If I can recall, I'll maybe say a little more. But notice the change in his attitude about the thing that was such a fleshly, physical, in other words, problem, called it a thorn, that God could remove, and he begged him to remove, but didn't. And the reason being that you're stronger in faith, or as a Christian, as a servant, Paul, in dealing with the weakness there, than it being always, or in this case, this one, taken away. So it's going to stay. And then he expands on it. Then I'm going to be, how does he call it? Take pleasure is the way this translation reads in verse 10. I'm going to take pleasure in infirmities, reproaches. He expands it beyond just the thorn. Any kind of those things that we would love to get rid of, who wouldn't? And begging God to remove. I'm going to have a different attitude about it if it makes me a stronger person as a Christian. I'll try to remember to say something about that maybe next time. But for now, I'll let that suffice. Thank you.